Welcome to the Ringer WNBA show. I'm Seerat Sohi, and we have an exciting episode for you guys. Let's start with Cameron Brink's debut. After 406 long days since she tore her ACL and MCL in her rookie season, Cameron Brink is back. She came back on a minutes restriction against the Aces. She played just under 15 minutes. The Sparks got blown out. But honestly, catching a glimpse of what Brink could mean to this team was worth the price of admission. Immediately, as soon as she checked in, the complexion of the game changed, especially on the defensive end. And I think what struck me immediately was just how aggressive she was, especially after over 13 months away from basketball. You could tell she was obviously chomping at the bit to get out there. She was crashing the glass hard. She's running the floor. She skied up over everybody for an offensive rebound on one of her first possessions, and she found Rickea Jackson. Rickea got a layup out of that. Then, Cam dribbles into a three out of a pick and pop. And I honestly don't think that I've seen a Sparks crowd that loud in the first half of a game all season. And for me, what was cool about this and what's important about this for LA is it continues a theme of the vibes being increasingly immaculate for LA, who are now, I think, 6-3 since Julie Allemond entered the starting lineup. And I think that she's kind of had a trickle-down effect on everybody. First of all, she's taken the pressure off of Kelsey Plum, who is averaging like 19 points on 12 shots at this point. She's averaging like 6.5 assists. Allemond is almost averaging 6 assists. The Sparks themselves are leading the W in assists over that stretch. They're also leading the W in offense and three-point percentage as well. The other thing that is important there is the Sparks' problem was never the offensive end of the floor. They definitely needed a little bit of pressure to be taken off of Kelsey Plum, but we were already starting to see that happen with Rickea Jackson having a great stretch too. I think about 15 points per game in the last 5 games on really great efficiency. She's starting to take more threes. She's integrating herself into Lynn Roberts' system. She had that incredible circus shot game winner against the New York Liberty, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But all of this really comes at a fascinating inflection point for the Sparks, because earlier this season, I talked a lot about how Kelsey Plum just looked exhausted and how hard it was for her to hold up in the end of games, especially crunch time, which is part of what contributed to LA's lack of clutch victories, just because of how much of a load she was carrying. She was really high up there in minutes, usage, shot attempts, and now she's kind of in this situation where a lot of the pressure has been taken off of her, and you're bringing in Cameron Brink, who is going to raise the level of the defense. So even on a night where you get blown out, where you look at it and you say, well, okay, LA shot like 17% from three. They only made 4 threes, both of which are season lows. Those are going to be anomalies for them. And as they continue to integrate Cam, and they also bring in Letitia Trammell, a defensive coordinator, to help Lynn Roberts out, I could see their defense getting to a place where it's average, and this team could potentially make a run for the playoffs. Like right now, this is, by the way, over the course of like 6 or 7 games, they had a 7% chance to make the postseason according to ESPN. And right now they have a 38% chance. They actually have a higher chance according to this algorithm than the Mystics and the Valkyries, even though they're just still slightly behind them in the standings. And dare I say, this was the plan all along for LA, right? Like, it was to try to just kind of stay within striking distance until they could get Cameron Brink back. And I think, one of the games that kind of figures heavily on my mind now is that Valkyrie's home opener that LA took home, and all of the threes that Kelsey Plum hit in that game. Like, you kind of needed those moments and those wins to get to this place now where you have a really, really good shot of making the playoffs. And this is just really important for LA long-term, right? Also, before I get into that, I just want to shout out the Sparks for bringing in Letitia Trammell, because I think this is actually the move when you have a first-time head coach, especially one who is integrating themselves from college to the WNBA in Lynn Roberts. Her offensive schemes are starting to work. We're seeing a lot more versatility in how they play. They are definitely getting the type of shots that they want. They are getting to the free throw line on top of, getting a lot of threes, which is like part of that analytics heavy approach that she has. She's also playing, she's striking the right balance now with Rickea Jackson too, who is definitely taking some of the middies that she likes to take, but is taking more threes than ever as well, and is playing really, really well and playing a lot more efficiently as a result of it. So she's figuring things out. It also feels like, she's got a good rapport with Kelsey Plum, so she's got a lot going for her. At the same time, she's not the best at making defensive adjustments throughout the course of the game. We've seen this in a number of games. We saw it in the Aces game, which we'll get into. So what do? They bring in Letitia Trammell, former Wings coach, who also spent time with the Sparks, who was a defensive expert. And I would just like to say, maybe Chicago Sky take some notes from last season, right? Like, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can give them some reinforcements. You can figure out their strengths and weaknesses and then try to go from there. All right. Anyway, all of this is really good for LA's long-term outlook. The vibes are immaculate. Before the game, Cameron Brink is, juggling with Julie Van Loo, who has been a very interesting chaos agent for the LA Sparks, which we also get into later in the podcast as well. So just put a pin in that. But it's just fun, like, obviously she's happy to be playing. They're happy to have her back. Rakia just hit a game winner. The vibes are just, they have not been better. I was this entire season, I was talking to one of the people who work for the team, and they have a saying in sports when you work for a team that basically when you're winning, the hot dogs are hot and the beers are cold. And right now the beers are cold for the LA Sparks. And that matters because they want to be a place that free agents want to come to. Like, part of the reason that they were willing to trade number 2 pick in this year's draft, who became Dominique Malonga, for Kelsey Plum, is because they wanted to accelerate their rebuild at a time when there's never been more interest in the WNBA and more investment and more, endorsement opportunities and all the things that players can take advantage of in a market like LA. But the franchise itself is still sort of, on its way to catching up. Like, they're trying to figure out where they want to put their next practice facility, things like that. So they're still on the way, but you bring in somebody like Kelsey Plum, who's not only an all-star, but is a really hardworking leader and a culture setter. This is why you do that, so that you can go into 2026 and say, hey, look, we're potentially going to have Kelsey Plum coming back, which is number 1 in that equation. And obviously winning and having good vibes is very important to all of that. We also have Cameron Brink and Rakia Jackson on cost-controlled contracts. Come and play here if you're a free agent, which, by the way, everybody else is in 2026. And making a playoff run, I think, is very, very key to that.